You're good to go, Mr. Chair.
All right. Y'all hear me? Good morning. I'm John Belamowitz, Chair of the Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council, calling this meeting to order. It is 10:03 on June 24th, 2025. Mr. Spinks, will you call the roll for us, please?
Yes, sir. John Blamowitz,
Present.
Ryan Bridges,
Here.
Brian Brumley,
Present.
Mark Cartwright,
Present.
Stephen Hallbauer,
Present.
Lee Hampton,
Present.
Lisa Merchant,
Present.
Wita Pryor,
Present.
and Christopher Taylor. And Dr. Taylor is absent today, Mr. Chair. He had checked in with me ahead of
All right,
time.
perfect. I would entertain a motion to excuse Dr. Taylor.
I'll make a motion.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Without objection, Mr. Taylor is excused, or Dr. Taylor is excused. Excuse me. First of all, welcome to everybody. Appreciate everybody being here in the room, and then everybody in the public participating via Zoom. I'm going to give a brief overview of today's agenda and flow. I am going to start, though. This is my first meeting chairing the council, and actually that role, but I want to take a minute to honor Chair Gloria Canseco. I circulated a resolution that all the members should have. Chair Canseco did a great job of doing something that we don't do very often in Texas, and that is create a new state agency. Creating government's not something we do very often for good reason. But this whole thing with the Behavioral Health Executive Council, by bringing all the mental health professions into one roof, I think showed a lot of wisdom on the legislature's part, the importance of mental health and the investment that we make in that. So that's a big opportunity to screw things up. And Chair Canseco did quite the opposite. I think she put people in positions where they would succeed. She allowed people to develop their strengths and to keep us on the tracks. We had a lot of issues, I think, from a lot of the member boards that we went through the inception. We had a lot of backlogs that we've cleared and we've done better on. And I think that's if that goes well, no one really says much. If that goes poorly, Chair Canseco is going to get called down to the legislature to explain. And so she had that on the line. And I think she did an amazing job. So I do want to just take a moment to read it into the record for the public to hear what we think about her. And then if the board has anything to add, or if there's a motion to approve this, I would entertain that. So this is a resolution of appreciation honoring Chair Gloria Canseco. Whereas Gloria Canseco has demonstrated a lifelong commitment to public service, guided by a strong sense of purpose and a deep concern for the well-being of others. And whereas throughout her career, she has served both in leading and supporting roles, stepping forward when called and standing behind others when needed, always in faithful service to the public good. And whereas as chair of the Behavioral Health Executive Council of Texas, she led and bore responsibility for a new state agency responsible for the oversight of licensed mental and behavioral health professionals across Texas, ensuring it was built on a foundation of sound governance, accountability, and public trust. And whereas her service reflected not only capable leadership, but also deep commitment to the mission of expanding access to mental health care and improving the quality of services available to individuals and communities throughout the state. And whereas she contributed meaningfully beyond state government, offering leadership in nonprofit healthcare and supporting efforts that bring care and resources to underserved populations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Behavioral Health Executive Council of Texas does hereby express its deepest appreciation and respect to Gloria Canseco for her extraordinary contributions to the state of Texas, for her unwavering dedication to advancing access and quality in mental health care, and for her enduring service in all forms to the people of Texas. I entertain any motions or comments.
Well said. I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Chair Canseco, if you're watching. We really appreciate what you've done, and I'm going to try not to screw it up for you here. Moving on. I want to take a minute to acknowledge our new board members. Get back to my list here of appointees. The governor has made some new appointments. Well, hang on just a second here. Thought I had that ready. So to fill my old role, we'll start with psychology. Brian Wrench, we're looking forward to what Brian Wrench is from Grapevine. I've had the pleasure of knowing him, and I think he's going to be a great addition to the board. On the social work board, Jason Bernal, David Marsden. On the MFT board, William Price, James Castro. And on the LPC board, Corey Rose, James Eby, Elisa Chan, and Nadia Stewart. And so welcome them to the agency and to their respective boards, and look forward to seeing what they have to do to advance mental health in this state. The next thing I want to tackle is something that happened. We can talk more about it maybe in the legislative update if we want to, but I am very happy to announce that when the governor signed the budget, he signed our budget with a couple of items in there, one of which it's been discussion. Dr. Cartwright, I remember you asking about this one time about should we just ask the legislature? And I said, I don't know if you remember this, I said the legislature speaks by what it funds. And the legislature decided, with this, rewinding a little bit, the EPPP and with ASPPB, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Point is that there is an effort to expand the test, expand barriers to the profession, which is how we saw it. We asked the legislature and put it at their feet and said, what do you think we should do? They did fund it. They funded they funded us to go ahead and begin designing our own exam. So to recap, though, back in, I think it was 2022, they started the skills test initiative, the EPPP2, which they abandoned. In 2024, we began that process in earnest of exploring a homegrown exam that would keep costs low and access to care good. In 2024, later, we filed an antitrust complaint with the FTC, which we later pulled down. We built a coalition of states, so much so that even New York gave us their proxy to vote for them at the ASPPB annual meeting. I want to note Florida, who's been engaged. California, we've had, I guess, less direct conversations with, but they've actually publicly put on the record recently some questions of ASPPB and their new reimagined EPPP. And so at the end of last year, ASPPB paused that mandate, reversed course, and abandoned essentially the EPPP2 and is reimagining a new exam as we speak. And as such, we went ahead and pulled down our complaint with the FTC. Over this past legislative session, we asked the legislature, we said, this is the problem. This is a potential solution. And we asked the legislature, what do y'all think? The House, there was obviously discussion on this, and it wasn't a slam dunk. The House actually left it out of the budget. The Senate, Texas Senate, left it in the budget, got worked out in conference, and it was ultimately there. And the governor signed that without a line item veto. I think that's taken with the discussion and scrutiny that it had. I think that's a clear vote of confidence in what we're doing and the direction we're headed. And so what does this mean? I'm sure a lot of people in the public say, what does this mean? Are we just going to throw the old one out and move on? What it means is that we are going to begin the process of designing that test and just deciding what should it look like? How should it function? What are the things that it should test? And we're going to be seeking a whole lot of input from stakeholders across the state. We've had conversations with stakeholders from across the nation. When we sold this to the legislature, and told them what we were doing, there were a lot of questions of, is this just for you? Is this just for Texas? Because I think there was some hesitancy on that, just, return, looking at the cost of what this is going to cost us to do. And we made it very clear that this is open. We are going to, we plan, if given the opportunity, we plan on asking other states, what would you like to see in this, and making sure that it is something that is not Texas only. That said, Texas funded it. We're accountable to the legislature for it. We're going to be able to decide, ultimately what's on this test and how it functions. That said, we are going to be seeking input from across the nation to see what does this need to look like, because it's obviously something that people across the nation are concerned about. Cost is going to be a concern, making sure it's not adding a cost. And the other thing that I'm anticipating, I'll just put it out there, with the failure rates that that EPPP has had, there's been a lot of feedback on saying, are they testing the right things and are they keeping out good and qualified people? I imagine if we do this right, I think that people could say, if we have higher passage rates, people say, oh, it's just a bad test and it's letting all the people in. I think the reality, we're gonna have to look at it. Obviously, that's not what we're gonna go for, is to just let anyone in. But the point is, it needs to be a right-sized test, testing the right skills. And if they've, if our graduates are coming out of our schools past the bar, then they pass the bar. And so that's the update there. We can talk about that more in the legislative update if you have further questions. But I wanted to put that out there that we were funded and we are proceeding with designing our own test in Texas. The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to be using usually the chair's report time for invited testimony right before public comment. I anticipate that this will be around 10 minutes. We could go a little bit longer if we need to. This is where I've talked about, I forget who I was talking to on which board, and it's like, oh, y'all are the people that just take people's licenses. We're going to use this time to take a few minutes to identify the good and the things that are happening in our state. So I'm very open to from the member boards of topics or individuals or entities that need highlighting and are worthy of discussion. So want to hear that in the future. And also just a note about public comment. We've done this at psychology. I don't know how y'all do it at each of your boards. General public comment's always going to be at the beginning of the meeting. I will give the option to stakeholders if there's something that wants to be delivered closer to an action item. I'm totally open to that. But generally, we're going to try and do it at the beginning. So with that, are we ready to go to?
Yes, sir. I just kind of give the public a little bit of background before we do the invited testimony. I know those of you out in TV land, you're probably aware, if you're subscribed to our listserv, you get emails from the council about twice a year where I tell you about the Medical Reserve Corps, the Texas Disaster Volunteer Registry. It's kind of a solicitation or a recruitment pitch for you guys to sign up for that, because it allows the state to muster mental health resources and send them wherever they are needed in the event of a disaster of sorts. And the fact that we just entered Atlantic hurricane season in June, a lot of you should have gotten one of those in just the very first part of June 1st or June 2nd. It was in response to that our invited speaker today, Mr. Brian Damas, or Damas. Brian, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name, but Brian reached out to me and asked if he could speak to our licensees directly, take this opportunity to speak to y'all and kind of make a recruitment pitch. He's much more eloquent. He's going to be much more versed in it than I am. So with that, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you,
Turn it over. Yeah, I would say, Mr. Damas, we're going to allow about probably 10 to 15 minutes for this, and I hope you'll leave some time for us to ask some questions and have some conversation with you.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I will. I was asked to keep it kind of short and sweet, so I will do so. And definitely leave a couple minutes for questions. And I'm going to provide my contact information as well if anyone else would like to, ask any other questions or engage in any other way. So I will just, in the interest of time, jump right to it. Share my screen here. Okay, so as the introduction said, my name is Brian Damas. You guys got it pretty close on the last name. Good job. And I am in the role of the Community Outreach and Volunteer Coordinator, which is in the Center for Health Emergency Preparedness and Response here at the Department of State Health Services. That is quite a mouthful. But essentially, as my volunteer coordinator role, I serve as the state MRC coordinator for the state. So I'm not going to make any assumptions that everyone knows what the MRC is. Daryl obviously mentioned he has promoted it in the past, at least twice a year. but some of you may not know what it is. So I just want to kind of start from the top and give you the high level background of what the program is. It is a national level program. It was started over 20 years ago. It was a post 9/11 sort of thing where there was a recognition that there was a significant need for medical and non-medical public health related type volunteers to support with disaster response. That was, a big identified gap. So that program was started. It was originally in the Office of the Surgeon General, and it switched over. And for a while now, it has been within HHS, their Strategic Preparedness and Response Administration. There are over 700 units nationwide. That covers the majority of states. I believe there's only maybe 3 states that don't have a unit. So it is a very large program on the nationwide scale. They are not sort of standalone volunteer organizations themselves. They are units that are within a housing or what we call sponsoring organization. The majority of the MRC units here in Texas and kind of nationwide are based at local health departments and a few at state health departments in some smaller states where there is a statewide MRC unit. There are some within emergency management agencies. There are several here in Texas that are within local EM offices. And then there are, across the country, there are some in universities as well. And we have one university-based unit right here in Austin. UT Austin does have an MRC unit themselves. So just to give you the snapshot of what it looks like here, I will share these slides with Daryl if he can send them out, but because it's kind of hard to see that map right there. But there is a link within here that will go to that page so you can look at that map more closely of where the units are around the state. The majority of them are based within the cities or around the cities and sort of some of the suburban counties as well. But there are a handful of more mid-sized to rural units as well within the state. So really, what do they do? What is DMRC's mission and goals? So there are 26 total right now in the state. And as I stated, the program was created to, essentially, to assist with disaster response, to have these volunteers that could deploy for a number of different missions. However, that has evolved a bit over the years because, as many disasters as there are, and there are many here in Texas, obviously, you got to keep those volunteers engaged on a kind of day-to-day basis. And what can you do to get them involved between sort of disaster response missions? So they're obviously doing sort of, the unit coordinators within the sponsoring organizations are doing constant recruitment activities, trying to build up their volunteer base. The units are heavily involved in a lot of community events, outreach, and education. That could be specifically around emergency preparedness efforts, or it could be other health-related topics, being at health fairs or community events where they set up tables and they're doing sort of health education and outreach. It could be chronic disease type stuff or the like. It could be a number of different topics where they're out there educating the community on health-related topics. They're also doing, community events where they would set up a first aid station. Say there is a marathon going on in a city. The MRC will often show up and help man the first aid stations there. So they do a lot of sort of day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month sort of community level work where they're out there at events, engaging with the community and providing services. They may be doing sort of CPR training or a basic life-saving BLS training, stop the bleed type things. They're doing those trainings outside in the community. And then they're doing sort of the specific trainings and exercises for emergency preparedness and response. So they are constantly doing trainings. They are involved in exercises, whether those are sort of tabletop discussion-based exercises, or they're sort of the full-scale exercises where the units themselves are out in the field actually doing activities to test out the specific response capabilities. Some of the response missions, and my list here doesn't cover all of them, but I just wanted to highlight a few. our shelters. We have a lot of our units that are trained in shelter response. So, Daryl mentioned hurricane season. So, they would be helping out at shelters that might be set up during a hurricane or another type of disaster, tornado, flooding, etc. They help out with what we call pods, points of dispensing sites. And that would be sort of the mass dispensing of medications or a mass vaccination campaign that might need to be set up. As you can imagine, that was a huge role that they had during our COVID response, doing mass vaccinations within communities. They will assist with family assistance centers. And this might be particular of interest to you all in the mental health space. Because family assistance centers are places that are set up in a mass casualty, mass fatality incident to provide services to the families of victims. And as you can imagine, a mental health mission, it would be a very big component of a family assistance center. Some of the others, they might assist with call centers that might be set up. They might assist with alternate care sites that are sort of a medical component. If a hospital needs to set up sort of tents outside of a hospital because they need more space, they would be doing that. They would be trying to help out with the disaster behavioral health. A lot of our units have their volunteers that have been trained in psychological first aid and would be providing that to folks in a response, and they might be helping out in an emergency operations center supporting those activities as well. In terms of volunteering, and kind of the reason why I wanted to come here today is that we do have a demonstrated need to recruit more mental health professionals within these units. When I look at the numbers, some of them have a high number that they've recruited, and others, it's definitely a pretty big gap. And among those that they have recruited, that doesn't necessarily mean that those folks are involved. They might have just signed up, but they might not be actually responding or participating in trainings, exercises, that kinds of things. So that we do have a gap. We do have a demonstrated need to recruit mental health professionals into these units, and we're trying to make a push for that. And I'm glad to be here today to at least give you the overview of what it is. In the emails that Daryl has sent out, he has included a couple things. One is this Texas Disaster Volunteer Registry. Now, this is the volunteer management tool database where folks can go to sign up. And they can choose a specific unit that they might want to sign up for. Now, the caveat here is, not every county, city in Texas is going to have an organization that's part of this system. So when someone signs up, they have to search for, where do I want to join? So there would have to be, obviously, an organization within their county that's in the system to sign up and be a part of that Medical Reserve Corps unit or other volunteer group. I've also included the link to our page. When what Daryl has sent out, he linked to the national level program, but I'm promoting our own DSHS MRC page because it has the specific links to those MRC unit pages, those local units, so you can kind of go straight to the source and find out what their MRC is about and sign up through those MRCs if you wanted to. And again, here's my contact information. If you want to write it down, or I will share these slides. I am happy. I know some of you may represent some of the associations, organizations out there. If this is something that you want to explore or want me to come do, a larger presentation to your association or organization and your constituents to talk a little further about this, I would be happy to do so. But that's really all I had. I know I had a short amount of time. I wanted to keep it short and sweet for you. I am open and available to any questions that you all have, or please reach out to me via email there, and I am happy to discuss things further with you as just a volunteer yourself, or as a potential association organization, representative of mental health professionals that you might want to discuss this further.
Thank you, Mr. Damas. This is John Belamowitz. So I have just a question. Can you just, for our licensees that are out there, and I guess my other question is, who all can volunteer? What type of people are needed? Certainly mental health professionals are. Can you just describe to me briefly what from the point of a mental health professional saying, hey, send me, I'm going to get on the registry, to potentially being deployed in an emergency or disaster or something? What does that process look like?
Good question. So yes, they would start obviously with signing up through the registry, and as part of that sign up, you create a profile, and you can put in within that profile, you can put in any trainings and licensures that you may have. So if you are, say, a licensed clinical social worker that wants to sign up, you would put that in your profile, so the organization you're joining can see that, hey, this is a licensed professional here. I need to engage them because I could utilize them for specific missions. Pardon me. And once you join a unit, that unit coordinator would reach out to you. They would do it. They do a background check for any volunteers, so they would do that as part of the process. They would verify the licensure of that individual just to make sure they're in good standing, and then they would essentially accept that individual into the organization. And then from there on out, they would receive communication from that specific MRC unit about any upcoming meetings. A lot of the units will do like orientations, where the new volunteers will come in. So they'll come in and they'll do an orientation either virtually or in person. They do both to get those new volunteers oriented, and then discuss those specific missions that might be needed. And then they would offer up also, they would kind of provide, this is the training plan. There would be some specific trainings that some of the volunteers do need to take. If you're familiar with the FEMA Incident Command System trainings, you may have heard that before. It might be some of those which are online trainings. And then it might be additional either virtual or in-person trainings to get that volunteer up to speed on the missions and what they would do, and then make them sort of, deployable as an asset within that organization. And certainly, I mentioned, specifically psychological first aid. That would be something that a mental health professional would, sort of enter that space if they listed their licensure, their training, their background. That would be something that particular MRC unit would be looking to utilize that volunteer to do, would be to provide that psychological first aid. That could be at a shelter, that could be at a family assistance center, that could be at one of the pod sites I mentioned, dispensing medications where people are, obviously in distress and would need the services provided through that psychological first aid. So they would, that would be one of the major missions that they would be utilizing mental health professionals for, or they could expand upon that to have more of a, a mental health sort of strike team concept, where they're kind of going above and beyond just the psychological first aid. Connecting folks to services would be important because they might not know where to find mental health services in their community. So certainly providing that connectivity to further services, if those folks need them, would be an important part of it as well.
So it sounds like a little bit of a time commitment to get onboarded, but after that, it's something that it's on your resume and you're ready to deploy once you've made that volunteer commitment of getting a little bit schooled up and trained. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, absolutely. That you don't want to, it's one thing to have someone sign up and volunteer, but there are specific, there is, an educational training component to it to get folks up to speed. Yes, it's good to lean on the licensure and the professional background of an individual, and you can utilize that, but they do need to get that sort of schooling and basic disaster response and how things are organized. In particular, that's where that incident command system I mentioned plays into it. That is essentially an organizational structure for how to respond to a disaster. So they would need that basic background and that understanding to just be a better volunteer.
Yeah, that's something. I was involved in some efforts after Hurricane Harvey, and I remember just the chaos that was there, because it felt, I'm sure there were backbones of structure and organization. There were a lot of us that were not plugged into that backbone, and it was chaos. So a little preparation would have gone a long way if we had known.
Yeah, absolutely. I know well. I was definitely a big part of the Harvey response in the state level, so I know of those things happening for sure.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So I noticed on the little map that you shared that a lot of our rural communities aren't represented. They don't have these units nearby. So like if somebody lived in a rural community and wanted to be involved in this, like would it be worth their time and effort to just find one of these units that are nearby, like maybe within an hour or two drive, or would there be a way to start some of these units in some of these rural communities so that more people can participate? I don't know. I guess just what advice or recommendations would you have for maybe our clinicians who
Yeah.
out in West Texas?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and certainly there is some precedent to some folks living sort of outside those areas. In particular, I'm thinking of our Alamo area unit, San Antonio, where they have sort of opened it up to some of the other counties outside of the area that are more rural. I know they have some folks that are in like Bandera County that sign up and be a part, and they're willing to make the commitment to say drive that 45 minutes, hour, or whatever it is into the city for a response. So it's certainly a personal decision. It's something that if you want to, sign up and you're willing to make the commitment to say, you know what, I will drive an hour to help out if I can, and letting that unit know, obviously that coordinator know, hey, I do live, it's going to take me an hour to get there. Just letting them know. And the second part of your question, in terms of starting rural units, the issue really is, I mentioned that the folks, these units need a specific, and this is a requirement on for the national level program, to have a sponsoring organization, have a housing organization. And the issue with the rural counties is there's really not that. There's no health departments in those areas. There might be a local emergency manager as part of the county, but that is probably just literally a one man, one woman shop doing everything for that county. So it's kind of difficult for them to say, oh, I'm going to start up this whole volunteer unit. It is work, right, to get this thing up and running, and recruit people. So it is, I wouldn't lie to you and say it isn't a difficulty to, sell this to rural areas. And I mentioned we do have a few. We just added one actually recently in a rural area in Rusk County in East Texas, which is rural. We have the Big Country one in Sweetwater, Nolan, which is rural-ish. I mean, there is the town there, obviously. And then Brown County, Brownwood, which is a smaller town, does have one. So there is some precedent there. But I wouldn't lie and say there isn't sort of the logistical difficulties of getting a unit up and running in those rural areas, because there's literally no infrastructure, to have a sponsoring housing organization for a unit and actually have someone that can commit to it and do the work. So there's difficulty with it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just briefly, how is this different from American Red Cross that does something similar?
Yeah, great question. So our units several of our units do coordinate with Red Cross. Red Cross is obviously they're gonna do shelters is their big thing after a hurricane or after response, or they on a sort of a local smaller level, they will sometimes respond to like some house fires or apartment fires, and they will connect people with certainly with services. But the MRC is going to be doing a lot more of that day-to-day work that I mentioned. So sort of the community outreach, education type of stuff. And then the missions of the MRC are a little more expansive than I would say Red Cross, where Red Cross is going to do those shelters. They're going to kind of, provide some services after, a fire or a hurricane or maybe a tornado and that kind of thing. But, Red Cross kind of comes in for a little while and then they leave, and the MRCs can have the option sort of to deploy a little longer if need be. And in terms of public health and medical services, they have a little bit more of an expansive sort of repertoire in terms of, like I said, those mass vaccination campaigns or mass dispensing of medications that's needed, the family assistance centers, being able to operate an emergency operations centers to assist there, to do call centers and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of a bigger scope than Red Cross in that sense, but they do coordinate with one another often on the local level with the local Red Cross regional local Red Cross chapters and our units. They participate in a lot of trainings together specifically. But there is sort of a divergency in the missions. You know, I hope that I just described that well.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
I had a question too. Is there any collaboration potentially with like rural school districts or, LEAs, like local education agencies, where you can kind of connect there too, to kind of reach some of those more rural areas and even highly urban areas that sometimes have, poor access to care?
Yeah, I know anecdotally. I don't have any kind of like hard data on it for you, but I do know, anecdotally of some of our units working with the ISDs. I don't have a lot of specifics. It's not something, just in full disclosure, that I have kind of collected any data or information on. I've just kind of heard their work, through their reports and stuff like that. So there is some work with the ISDs being done. You mentioned rural. I guess it's kind of the same answer that I just gave before about rural. Just there's not a lot of units in those rural areas. So the units themselves, they are really sort of they're localized to their jurisdiction. So say, the Dallas County MRC, they're just going to respond mostly in Dallas County. These units generally don't deploy outside of their geographic area. There is some precedent for it, but they are generally going to be responding and doing community activities within that county or city that they're housed in.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Brian, thank you for being here. Just to all of our licensees out there who might be considering this, I've just a very, very short anecdote. I was privileged to be able to help with some things after Harvey, and I won't name the hospital, but I mean, there were 3 of us that ended up flying chemo drugs across the state because they couldn't get across town to get the chemo drugs out of their warehouse. It was the wildest thing ever. And because we were plugged into the right people, it was a real privilege to be able to help in that way. But we had done the groundwork to be plugged into the right places. And so if your heart is anywhere out there and willing to serve when it hits the fan, when the chips are down, and when our fellow friends and neighbors in our communities are in trouble, if you want to help, having done the homework and the prep work to be able to step up and to be able to be called on, for me, it was one of the most proud moments of my life. One of the coolest things I ever got to do. But to be able to be called on, you got to do a little bit of homework and got to be prepared. And so, Brian, I appreciate you being here and showing our licensees the on-ramp if this is something they feel called to do.
And I thank you so much for your time. I will send the slides to Daryl. And also I have 2 documents that I want to share that kind of show what the MRC has done, a report from 2024 of their activities, and then actually a report from the COVID response. So you can got to get a sense of, you can look at the data and the actual stories of what they've done, what they've been involved in. So I think that will just be just good information to people to see. And I will send those to Daryl.
I love it. Thank you very much. All right.
I appreciate your time.
You bet. I also, in looking at my notes and just pulling the governor's appointments list, I failed to, because it's not technically a new, it's not a new like appointment. I failed to note our new chair of the psychology board, Mr. Ryan Bridges, was appointed by the governor to chair the psychology board, filling my old spot. So congratulations to Ryan on that. Huge vote of confidence, and I know it's in good hands over there.
He also is filling your public role spot on this council.
That's correct. That's correct. So congrats to Ryan. That concludes the chairman's report. We're going to roll into public comment. As a reminder to the public, you're limited to 3 minutes. If there's something that you wanted to comment on specific to an agenda item, we can take that then. Would appreciate you saying so now. And that the council may not discuss or take action on any item that's not on the agenda. And we're happy to hear you out, though. So you will use the, I see nobody in the room here for public comment. So if you'll use the raise hand feature, Daryl will get to you.
All right. Start out here with Faith Northern. Do you have public comments you'd like to give?
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
We can. Take it away.
Perfect. My name is Faith Northern. I am a licensed professional counselor associate speaking on behalf of Texas Therapists for Social Justice, an emerging coalition of mental health professionals across license types. We are here today as we anticipate the council will vote to adopt the proposed changes to requirements for continuing educations for licensees. We speak in solidarity with hundreds of licensees and members of the public whose opposition seems to have been considered in only the most nominal sense. The member boards and council have continued with proposed changes despite the numerous written and verbal comments, as well as a petition with more than 1,500 signatures. The fact is that the proposed changes are unnecessary and unwanted by the majority of licensees. They do not address any demonstrated problem, as the alleged confusion surrounding the original rules has not been defined in any meaningful or specific way. Yet, the member boards and council have proceeded as though there is an urgent need for clarity in the form of replacing language that references cultural competence and diversity. Their failure to articulate a neutral and evidence-based rationale for this makes us concerned about the infiltration of anti-DEI and other political rhetoric. These concerns are not unfounded. A licensing board member publicly stated, "We successfully revised the DEI rule to remove politically charged language," and another described the proposed changes as an effort to remove politically and culturally sensitive touch words and trigger words. When viewed in context, the proposed changes feel less like a response to an actual administrative need and more like an alignment with politicized narratives that do not protect the public and may, in fact, harm it. The member boards and council have historically worked in partnership with licensees and been responsive to our concerns. It is precisely because of this that we find this shift so troubling. The proposed changes may seem like minor edits to the original language, but they signal a possible departure from the member boards and council's role as neutral bodies that prioritize the accessibility and provision of quality care to the public. We urge the council not to forge ahead with these changes and instead recommit to impartiality, responsiveness, and transparency in its decisions. Thank you for listening to our public comment.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Sarter, do you have public comments you want to give?
Yes, I do. Good morning, everybody. And I want to welcome the new members of the council as well. So we appreciate your dedication to serve on this council. Good morning. My name is Dr. Terry Ann Sarter, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and supervisor in private practice, a counselor educator, and the liaison to BHEC for the Texas Counseling Association. This will be my last meeting in which I will serve as the liaison to BHEC for TCA. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity. Dr. Lori Hollingsworth will be taking over this role, and she is attending via Zoom today. TCA does not have much to comment on today, and our concerns regarding changes were mentioned in the LPC board meeting on June 6th. We appreciate the council for allowing Brian Damas to speak to the disaster volunteer opportunities in Texas with various organizations and in Texas communities. TCA looks forward to several of the discussion points which will assist mental health providers in better serving the citizens of Texas. Thank you for closely monitoring and following trends in our field and considering the additional guidance that may be needed to assist license holders in navigating the new modalities for providing treatment while ensuring ethical practice and the protection of the public. We appreciate continued conversations and opportunities to provide feedback on key concerns impacting mental health professionals. Thank you for hearing our concerns of our members, and we continue to uphold the high professional standards. Additionally, thank you for the continued opportunities to participate in these meetings via Zoom and or review the recordings later. TCA does appreciate the hard work of the council, board members, and the time it takes to serve our great state in this capacity. As a professional counselor, supervisor, and counselor educator, many students and professionals are surprised to learn that public and professional members of the licensing boards and the council are volunteers and are not paid for this work. Thank you for making this sacrifice to further support Texans and assist mental health providers in providing quality and ethical services. Thank you for listening to our comments, and please let us know if we can be of further assistance.
Thank you, Dr. Sarter.
Sandra Martin, do you have public comments you want to give? Ms. Martin?
Ms. Martin, you're on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Take it away.
Well, I had some notes written up previously that I wanted to share, but after I heard opening remarks by the chairman this morning, I just want to kind of put those aside for another time and say this: we are very pleased with what we heard. I'm hearing new thought, which is always refreshing. Well, maybe not always, but most of the time, we hope. I'm hearing new thought. I'm hearing expansion without control or partisanship. We're hearing opportunity to speak to problems and concerns we may have in a time directly associated with those problems and concerns, which keeps those concerns from kind of drifting off somewhere toward the end of the meeting and losing them. We're hearing possible action with other states. We're hearing Texas, having been in a pushback position earlier, is now dangerously close to being in a leadership position. That does not depress us or discourage us. Certainly in reference to the health comments by the brother that spoke earlier, we're hearing very good things about that. Hearing good things about the chairman of this council actually in the action. I think he flies a plane, if I remember, and so that will be convenient. I'm not sure I remember that correctly, but instead of, I will just mention this: we are very pleased with the court decisions in Tennessee. I won't go into that because it will take more time than is permitted me, but we are very pleased about the court decisions in Tennessee. And I'll just end with that. Thank you so much for your work. Thank you for the directions you're looking to, and we're very excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Will Francis, do you have public comments you want to give?
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Will Francis, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Association of Social Workers Texas and Louisiana chapter. Just have a few public comments to make. Just want to thank Chairman Blimowitz for the wonderful resolution to Chairwoman Canseco. Her work was amazing and instrumental in founding BHAC and really building it out to what it is, and I really appreciate taking the time to do that. I'd also like to thank the BHAC for having Brian from Dishes come speak. I thought that was really informative, a really great way for folks to see how to get involved at the local level. I would love to see more presentations like that, more folks from across different systems, more folks who support the ways that mental health providers can get involved. And I think having a guest speaker like that is fantastic, and Brian specifically. I am excited to hear about the funding for the psych exam. I think I'd be remiss to say that the psychologists were not the only profession to get support from the legislature for examinations. The legislature did dedicate dollars specifically to the social work board to explore a Spanish language exam at the master's level, which would, should that come to fruition, make Texas the first state to have a Spanish language licensing exam, which I think is incredibly exciting, incredibly forward thinking, a huge recognition of the diversity in our providers and the need to really recruit providers from a variety of different backgrounds. So I think that that's a really important step, and I'm really excited that BHEC is going to be, or the social work board along with BHEC is going to be moving forward in that way. Appreciate the agenda items about alternative therapy. It's just great to see this board looking into spaces to protect clients and providers. As for the new rules for the social work boards, I do agree with the other speaker that ultimately the changes to cultural competency are not necessary, but the other rules overall we do support. And I just really want to thank staff on the, both BHAC and the Texas State Board of Social Worker Examiners for being willing to listen on comments, making some adjustments. Some of the rules you'll see for the social work boards do have some adjustments to them, and I very much appreciate that those were made through discussion. I do still think we need a definition of qualified supervisor, but I'll leave that for later. And then lastly, this past legislative session, I know when you talk about it, you'll likely talk about compacts. You know, the PSYPACT is wonderful for psychologists, but the social work and the counseling compact did not really move forward. And I think there was a lot of misunderstanding about the compact and what it would do, a lot of misinformation, the ways it really can support practice, the ways it can support networks, financial supports for folks is important. And I would love to see BHEC maybe take some time in the future and really explore what compacts could do for the professions, how the PSYPACT is working, and how social workers and counselors could potentially step into a really important area with a compact as well. So I hope that is something that BHEC takes up. And thank you for allowing me to comment today.
Thank you, Mr. Francis.
Philip Crum, do you have public comments you want to give? Mr. Crum?
I do. Pushing
There we
buttons here. All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm
morning.
Philip Crum. I'm a Texas citizen. I'm a co-founder of AMP, and I'd like to say welcome to the new board and council members. I'm very happy to see John B in the pilot seat. Very happy about that. We at AMP and our members and a great number of licensees are very much in favor of the cultural diversity rule rewording. Leave us alone and let us determine what courses constitute professional development. I'd like to share the comments that I made with the LPC board a couple of weeks ago with you today. The mental health profession is part of an overall counselor development system with many issues that need to be addressed. Our family structure is broken, and traditional roles have been vilified in the name of individual truth. And more than half of our licensees support that with an "if it feels good, it must be right for you" mindset. And that's a real problem. Our K through 12 education is under assault by cultural Marxists masquerading as teachers and school board members. Our higher teaching institutions are staffed by activists, and our grad programs are producing professionals who have largely abandoned a do no harm ethos, concerned only with not offending a client and affirming their self-diagnosis in the interest of subjective truth. Many counseling students are opting to change career plans, contributing to a workforce shortage, and many in the above 50 crowd are opting for early retirement or other lines of work. The healthcare disciplines themselves are siloed, do not work well together, and in fact are often at odds with each other. No one wants to acknowledge this, but our licensee base is fractured into two groups: the old school science and evidence-based practitioners and those who practice a form of care driven by social ideologies. The public is very aware of this split and doesn't trust us anymore. They're also aware that the 5 prescriptions they're on aren't fixing their problems. Our legacy professional associations across all disciplines openly promote the social justice agendas, lobby against legislation that aims to protect our nation and its children, and still do this openly on their websites and in public. That realization is driving change at the grassroots level. And while we're not yet at public tipping point, we're very close, and this profession is nowhere near ready for it. But the news is not all dire, as there are parallel economies in all stages of the counselor development cycle, on the academic level and in the professions, including counseling, that are being developed right now. We believe that in less than a generation, the counseling profession and its practice will look nothing like it does today. There's a sea change coming in the world of healthcare, and counseling will be unavoidably swept up in it, largely because the American citizen is fed up with it all. So again, I welcome to the new board members and counselors, to John B. I hope you all are up to the challenges ahead. I hope we're all up to it. Appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Hollingsworth, you have public comments you want to give?
Yes, I do. Good morning, everyone. My
Morning.
name is Dr. Lori Hollingsworth, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and supervisor. I'm also the incoming liaison to BHEC for the Texas Counseling Association. I would like to echo Dr. Sorter's welcome to the new members of the individual boards and council. Just a little background of information on myself. I have previously served as the president of the Texas Mental Health Counselors Association, and in that role for the last 2 years, I've attended the Texas LPC board meetings. In the background, I have also been attending some of the council meetings virtually and watched the recordings. I have listened to the board members and staff engage in open dialogue concerning difficult decisions to be made regarding rule reviews and considering concerns expressed through public comment by multiple stakeholders across the state. And I thank you for the opportunity of seeing the board in action and also the board taking these public comments. I want to express my sincere appreciation to the council and the staff for your ongoing service as professionals and public servants. I am fully aware of the hours and dedication that professional and public members pour into each of their positions while serving on the council and the individual member boards. Thank you for the opportunity to offer public comments and engage in meaningful dialogue as stakeholders regarding the rules and regulations that shape our work as mental health professionals. I look forward to serving as the Texas Counseling Association liaison to this esteemed council. Thank you again for your time and your continued service to the citizens of the great state of Texas.
Thank you, Dr. Hollingsworth.
Kathleen Mills, you have public comments you want to give?
Yes, sir, I do. Congratulations, Chair John B. I'm very thrilled that you are at the head of the ship, and I'm very looking forward to this council's energy in the years ahead. So kudos to you all. My name is Kathleen Mills. I'm a licensed professional counselor supervisor, and I currently supervise 3 associates. I'm also the co-creator of AMP. BHEC has entrusted Texas's best fully trained supervisors in order to help and fully equip their associate for what lies ahead of them. We all know that many associates have a wide gap of knowledge yet to learn that grad school was not able to teach with the given K-CREP curriculum. Associates need to know what is really happening at the grassroots level that is only learned with well-seasoned supervisors. Associates are telling their boards and perhaps this council that supervisors are not being fair to them. This is the same playbook LPC associates used a few years ago that supervisors were exploiting them in order to win a false narrative, in order to be in their own practice while under the direct supervision with an accredited BHEC supervisor. How many truly have done this and succeeded? Today, this same playbook by demonizing supervisors once again has been reactivated by complaining to their college professors that supervisors are still unfair. Entitlement seems to be the key weapon of persuasion. Here are some of the things that us supervisors are challenged with teaching academia's graduates. Reviewing the entire 180-page rulebook, which also includes all things listed on page 47. Fiscal responsibility, what it takes to run a business, deprogramming what they've been led to believe about what might their initial income should be post-grad school, sacrifices that may need to be made to get their accrued hours, reviewing things like what vertical consolidation is really all about when it comes to nefarious platforms that are promising your God-given payment, what a comprehensive HIPAA and PCI compliance truly looks like, what the current counseling landscape is all involved. I watched the video of the last MFT meeting and was dismayed to hear the head of the board calling for action to interfere with the financial relationship between a business owner and its labor force. I don't believe that type of action is within the purview of any of the boards. Here's 3 things to consider. Maybe academia could take just 1 hour, 60 minutes, and educate students how business-oriented splits are based on business expenses and not social entitlement. I really think that my associate student loan and 300 practicum hours needs to be considered, and it's not part of my spreadsheet to help them take home 70% of every dollar earned. No one does that. I really think that it is our duty as a council to re-educate what is really happening. Thank you for your time. I appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you for your comments.
Dr. Lockhart, do you have public comments you want to give?
Hi, yes, good morning. Thank you for allowing me to make a comment. I just wanted to thank Mr. Billerowitz for his work on the psychology board and really appreciate him doing that. And am very excited that he got promoted, quote, to the chair of the BHEC board. And also I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Bridges in working with his chair, being chair of the new psych board. I really appreciate that that happened with those appointments. And very happy also that the Texas legislature decided to fund the psychology exam, and look forward to working with the board and the psych board on that too. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Ms. Kimball, do you have public comments you want to give?
I do. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for serving. And John, it's wonderful to see you as the chair. I'm a big fan. Looking forward to some excellent changes. Interested in this psychology test and how you're going to formulate it with all these issues of DEI and those who you'll be appointing to formulate. I'm hoping it will be science-focused, evidence-based, and that we won't lower the bar too much. I know we're trying to accommodate an increase in numbers. However, the standard of care needs to be set up pretty high with the problems that we're seeing today, including these political agendas that are being pushed in our profession. I loved what Brian was saying and wondered if our practicum students and associates giving their volunteer hours, if somehow as boards you can look at giving them credit toward their 300 hours as volunteers studying this additional course, because it's wonderful to volunteer, but when you're asking people who don't make money to volunteer, I think it would be a nice return to give them some sort of CE credits or write to their school and say they've earned this study program toward their practicum. So I'm just throwing some ideas out there since you guys are going to start a couple of new phases. Appreciate all the work that you guys do. Looking forward to a new chapter with new leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kimball.
And there are no telephone callers, so that concludes public comment, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you to everybody who commented. We're better when we have public involvement, so appreciate all of your comments very much. We're going to begin with informational items, and also, guys, we have more than a quorum, so I'm going to just try and go as long as we can here. So if you need to step out for a minute, just go. And for those of you who are attending the meeting virtually, just need cameras on to maintain you for quorum. If you have to step away, that's fine. We've got we've got 5 in the room here, so we can maintain quorum as long as all 5 of us are here. All right, so moving on to informational items. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Spinks to go through any informational items that he wants to cover, but there's no questions. We're going to just keep moving on.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will be brief. Unless there are any questions about the performance measures, I'll just sum it up by saying everything is running well. You can see a little bit of a slowdown there in the number of pending complaints, but again, that's directly attributable to the lack of attorneys in the legal division, and we'll talk about that later when we talk about funding. But other than that, there are no problems there. PSYPACT, I don't think there are any issues there. So everything's, unless you've got something to report, Patrick.
No, other than the mid-year meeting is July 14th for the commission, and they're up to 43 enacted, 42 active. So Montana has joined, but it doesn't have an active date yet. So it's still growing, and yeah, everything's going well so far.
Okay.
Agenda. I had a question. You'd mentioned in the psych board meeting that potentially New Mexico reciprocity.
Yes.
So I didn't know if there was any more word on that, or.
We have not. New Mexico hasn't gotten back to me yet to schedule a meeting with me. I was on the agenda, or I thought I was on the agenda, but they mistakenly left me off, and oops. And they just haven't gotten back to me yet to so that we can get on the agenda and talk about that. But that's still something floating around out there.
Okay, thanks.
The next item I want to jump down to 4G, H, and I. I'll cover them as quick as I can. But 4G, I need everyone to be paying attention to this case. This is going to be one of those North Carolina Dental Board cases, and everybody needs to have their eye on this. It will be a watershed moment in behavioral health care, I can assure you. It's the Chiles versus Salazar case. It comes out of Colorado. It's a challenge by an LPC there to I hate to use the term conversion therapy ban, but because I don't know if that's accurate, but it's a speech challenge there. And I've got a link in the agenda where you can go to the docket page. You can actually see the question presented, which is the question that the U.S. Supreme Court is asking of the petitioner and the respondents. I'll highlight that so far, I just had ChatGPT tell me this, so I didn't count on myself, but ChatGPT tells me that there have been 70 amicus briefs filed in that. Now, you may say, well, what does that mean? Well, when you look at the Loper versus Bright case, which was a U.S. Supreme Court case that did away with a Chevron standard of an aspect of law or doctrine of law that had been in place for 40 or 50 years, has huge impacts on the business community. That thing only had 48 amicus briefs filed in it. This one's got 70 so far, and they're still trickling in. So there is a lot of interest in Chiles versus Salazar. So everybody needs to be watching. It won't come out until next year. So we've got a little while before that's going to come out. It hasn't even been argued yet. They're still just taking briefings. So, but everybody pay attention to it because it is going to have an effect on the professions, not just in Texas, but nationwide. The next one is 4H. Just want to update y'all. I think Patrick or Robert stumbled across, somehow or another we received an email a while back from some researchers at the University of Texas, Rio Grande, and they were inquiring about studying our enforcement statistics to see if they could tease out any kind of disciplinary trends. And we immediately latched on that and thought, if you've got the researchers and you're willing to do it for free, we will see if we can figure out a way to give you full access to our database so that you can tease it out, not just for social work, but for all the professions. So we've struck up an agreement with UT Rio Grande. They've got the researchers. We have signed the confidentiality agreements so that they have full access to disciplinary data in our database, and they are going to research that. It's legitimate research, not just me, Robert, and Patrick. Nothing against us. We're good, but we're not nerds in a university looking at it. So this is going to be legitimate researchers looking at it. And they will hopefully be able to tease out and kind of help identify trends. Plus, it's good to have some outside eyes from outside the agency look at it. If we're blind to something, they're probably going to spot it. So we are waiting on just some final okay from them on it. It hasn't been completely okayed yet from the higher ups there, but I just wanted to tell everybody that's transparency. These are the things we're trying to do to make ourselves better and a little more responsive. So that's in the works.
Do you know what their specific research question is?
Say again.
Do you know what their specific research question is?
So we've asked them to look at, we want to try to see if we can find trends both administratively for us, but also practice trends. And so on the one hand, they're going to be looking for things like unconscious bias on our part, that if we do we always or almost always dismiss certain kinds of claims that are against certain kinds of providers? Is there some trend like that we haven't noticed in ourselves, but they pick up in the data? They came to us because they were interested in, from a practice standpoint, are there backgrounds or trainings or university degrees that correlate more with or without disciplinary actions, so that they're looking at it from a standpoint, and we're also interested in, are there topic areas that the community needs more training in, or are there particular types of training that seem to keep people from succeeding or keep people from getting in trouble?
So I guess 2 follow-up questions. One, would this be looking at things like hours requirements or online, in-person, degree types?
To the extent part of it's a data problem.
Okay.
We're going to share all the data we can. At the high level, it's going to be mostly based on type of license and how long they've had the license and what the disciplinary action, things that were measurable in the system. But we are hopeful that as they pare that down, that they can then go in and get some of that more qualitative data on at least some questions to find out where were these degrees from, were they online versus in person, things like that.
And then secondly, like for the trends, does this mean that we're going to be giving them like all of our complaint data? So not just the complaints that we actually, took action on, but even just all the complaints that we received and how all of those were processed.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. I like that.
And to clarify, that's for all four boards, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So
Cool.
restate further. It sounds like we're going pretty open kimono on this, and they're going to let us know what they find.
Correct.
Yeah. This is something that we've talked about with competency and public protection and data. And I've asked the question many times, like, show me the data. And we have our own internal data, but I mean, y'all are smart, but you guys aren't data nerds, like looking over it. Like, and so I'm
Smart enough to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm happy that they're doing this, and I'm happy we're working with them.
How far back are they looking?
Is it 2022?
Two full fiscal years at the moment, 23 and 24. Well,
Okay.
Actually, 3. I think we got 22 as well.
Okay. The reason being is when you get back beyond 2022, the data, there's some problems in the data past that. You get into some of the transition from HHSC over to BHEC, and there's some issues there that would take more time to sort out than what it's going to be worth, I'm afraid. And we ought to be able to glean what we can from the 23-4.
So when working with them, did you explain that to them, or did they already come to you with that assumption?
No, we had to. I think originally they had wanted like basically everything, from way back when, and we were like, well, that's going to be very problematic prior
Right.
to BHEC's days, because the data sets are different. It looks different. Things are different. So we talked with them about that.
Has there ever been anything done in the past that would be comparable to what they're going to find so that we could compare? Nope.
No, nothing
Okay.
like this has ever been
Well,
done.
then let's get a benchmark.
So, I mean, we're plowing new ground here. This
All right.
has never been done before.
Pretty cool.
So,
Has anybody done it in any other states? Anything like this that we know of?
not that I know of.
Yeah, not partnering with a university that I know of.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, the only way this is possible is through an agreement like this. We could not afford to do this ourselves, to hire somebody to come in and do it. And we had to structure it in such a way that they are actually acting as our agents. That's why we have the agreements that you see there, because you can't turn this data over to anybody outside of the agency. And so we had to make them an agent of the state in order to be able to do this. And we have to keep, and even once they're done, the data must be de-identified. Nothing that leaves us will have any kind of identifying. You won't be able to identify anybody based off of it. It will just be kind of overall general trends is all they will get to walk away with. Everything else will be for our consumption.
I'm glad you said something that I think we need to get on the record. I'm going to ask the question. So I think anyone out there in the public who's a licensee saying, what the heck's the agency doing with my data?
Mm-hmm.
So what is leaving our building, and how is it secure?
It really won't leave the building, in that everything is electronic now. So what we will do,
I guess I mean that figuratively. Like how is it getting to them out of our custody, and
Yeah.
who's going to see it, and what is going out?
Yeah, basically what we do is we provide them with a list of all the complaints received and disciplinary actions taken. And then from that, they can pare down and see, do representative sampling to see, okay, which ones do we want to drill down on? And then when they want to drill down, what we're going to try to do is set it up to where they actually have view-only access into our database, and we can compartmentalize that, keep them within a certain area, and then they won't be able to change anything. They can look at anything, but they can get in there, but it never leaves our database, the security of our database. So they won't actually have anything separate or outside of our database.
There's no exports going on. It's
No,
just they're just
yeah, it's
looking
view
at it.
only.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That makes
I
me
mean,
feel good
if
too.
if it makes anybody feel any better, Jenny only gives me view only authority for our database. So
Okay.
she's like, I don't want you touching it. So I know how that works.
Okay,
That's what I've
good.
got.
Good. Thank you.
And then, of course, the next thing is I forget when it was, but the letter, you've got the letter or the email in there. The governor's office had reached out to us a while back and asked us to do a initial Doge style assessment of things that we could change or eliminate, just low hanging fruit basically in the agency, changes that we can make to improve efficiency and save costs or cut costs. And so the spreadsheet that you have there, those are the things that were identified by staff. Now, just so you understand this, I mean, a lot of your chair, well, we've got all the chairs here. So we consulted with the board chairs in making those decisions, but those are the cuts. They won't be anything that's not going to be anything that the public's going to feel. We're talking about things like my subscription to the Texan, to the clearinghouse, the Senate clearinghouse, which is a publication.
Apologies to those publications.
Yeah. Yes. Apology. Yes, exactly. But those are some of the things that we've cut there. So, we're in compliance with the directive from the governor's office on that. But if you got any questions about where that came from, I know most of you were involved in that discussion, but
And sir, is this final? Like this is the changes that we are actually making?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're actually, most of them have already been done.
Okay.
And then a few of them are just still in progress.
Okay.
So, and that's it on informational items, unless there are any questions.
Any questions from the board, from the council? I got to get in the habit of that. Robert's going to throw something at me.
I'm checking off. This is done.
No further questions. Yes, sir. Yes.
Not really a question. I just wanted to commend staff on some of the streamlining that was done there. I know so much streamlining was done whenever the council was founded in the first place. So just wanted to commend you guys on the additional streamlining y'all were able to find.
Thank you.
Indeed. Any other comments or questions? All right, moving on to number 5, action items. 5A. This is going to be, so everything here is to be essentially ratified, correct?
Correct.
Voted on. All right, so y'all have that. It's a revocation that I would need a motion. If there's any questions on it, first of all.
Mr. Chair, you want me to lay it out real fast?
Go ahead.
It's a case went to SOO. It's a default hearing. Mr. Walker did not show up. It went back to the psychology board. They voted to revoke this person's license. Mr. Walker was convicted of multiple counts of child pornography. He's been incarcerated for 8 years. And so the order here for your consideration is to revoke his license. We should just see if he is in attendance, and if he is, allow him a few moments to speak. Since he's incarcerated, I doubt that he is in attendance. But the other issue is that, Mr. Chair, I believe you and Dr. Cartwright were on the ISC, so you may need to recuse from the vote. But other than that, that sums up.
I'm okay to conduct the vote. I usually wouldn't vote anyways, correct?
Right.
Okay, just to clarify.
If Mr. Walker or his attorney is present in the audience and you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing no hands.
Seeing no hands. Any discussion or motions? This would be a motion to revoke.
I'll make a motion to revoke.
Been moved.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No. All those opposed say no. And show Dr. Cartwright recused. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item up is going to be a legislative update. I'm going to start with just some important bills that failed, and this is more for public edification than it is consumption here at the council level. But House Bill 1537 and SB 498, which are the counseling compact, and then House Bill 3503 and SB 1726, which was the social work compact. Both of those bills failed. They didn't receive a hearing. So they are effectively dead until next session, which at that point, then the public or associations will have an opportunity to seek a new, file another bill, seek new authors. There's really nothing that we can say or do at this point on that. That is, we're not allowed to lobby, in short. But it's disheartening. It's disheartening. But I will say this for the public: compacts are going to be. They've had even the cosmetology compact, which was passed this time, I believe it was vetoed again. So it's passed the past 2 sessions and been vetoed each time. So there is something about compacts right now that they are not very palatable to legislatures. That having been said, I will say this: both the counseling and social work compact have proven to be highly palatable in other jurisdictions. They are very, widely adopted. The social work, when I heard somebody say the other day, it's one of the fastest growing compacts out there. So, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but the parade's over for this session. But you may want.
Carol, I think the social work has 29 states now.
29. Okay.
Latest update.
Yeah, and it's a relatively young compact too. So,
What is the
next
reason-
one.
Do they provide reasoning like on why, or do they just
No.
vote it down?
No, it doesn't even get a hearing. It didn't even get a hearing in committee. Yeah. And you never really know why. Every once in a while you'll hear a passing comment or something made in a hearing, and you have to try to glean what's going on from that kind of stuff and from discussions with staffers and lobbyists, but nothing officially. Then, of course, the Medicaid reimbursement for associates bill, it actually passed out of the House, which that was incredible. I had not expected that, but it did, and I was tickled when it did. But then it died in Senate Health and Human Services, and that was House Bill 1716 and SB 469. Of course, the MFT, LPC, and social work update bill filed by Representative Romero and Zaffarini. Again, it did not pass. I believe this was the 3rd or 4th time that it had failed. It's failed to pass. Senate Bill 1081 from Senator West, which would have established the Art Therapy Board, failed. I think it might have gotten a hearing. I know we had to submit a fiscal note on it. House Bill 11 by Representative Phelan was an omnibus reciprocity bill. I was pretty excited about it because we were included in it. It was going to give me the ability to do reciprocity agreements for all the professions. Right now, I just have it for psychology. But at the last minute in a committee hearing on the House side, they stripped everybody but TDLR out. I don't know why that was done. I have no clue why that was done. But nevertheless, we were out. But the bill went all the way. So TDLR now has the reciprocity authority, but all the other health agencies were taken out. And then lastly, Senate Bill 268, which was passed. This won't matter to anybody out in TV land, but it was kind of important to us. It was a bill that would have restricted agencies' ability to investigate and discipline members of another profession, i.e., issue cease and desist. If a nurse was practicing counseling or social work, we could issue a cease and desist. But the bill would have stopped that. But Governor Abbott vetoed the bill. I haven't read the veto statement yet, so I don't really know what his rationale was. But that bill was vetoed. Now, moving on to the little more cheerful stuff, what did pass? Of course, SB1, our budget, we've got our baseline request, funding for the development of the psychology exam. The legislature did give us funding to hire 2 attorneys to help with the increased pending complaints we have and the issues we've had there. The ledge also gave us money to cover NPDB subscriptions so that we will no longer, once implemented, we'll no longer have to ask people for audits to supply an NPDB self-query report. We're going to kind of flirt around and see if there's some way we can just use that to get out of having people submit NPDB self-query reports with initial licensure as well. I don't know if there is a way, but it'd be nice if we could just do that all in-house and applicants and licensees didn't have to worry about it at all. And then, of course, rider language, both chambers, the ledge did approve the rider language we had requested. We've been sued over Chapter 108 of the Occupations Code. And I'd asked the legislature for rider language that would basically cut, if we lose that lawsuit, the comptroller will pick up the expenses on that. They approved that. They gave that to us. So that was good. And then the legislature, as Mr. Francis mentioned in his public comment, the legislature included rider language that appropriates $200,000 to the council to develop a Spanish language translation of the LMSW exam. And then lastly, the legislature gave a 6% across the board salary increase to all staff attorneys in the state. And it's because the state's hemorrhaging lawyers right now. They're trying to do something to stem that. They cannot compete with the private sector. So they're trying to combat that. House Bill 12, which was by Representative Bell. Someday I will share with the public or share with the council members. I maintain a list of all the audits and reports that we have to file. And it's like on Facebook, you can just scroll that list. It's just never ending, it feels like. So House Bill 12 will add to the list of audits that we undergo, though. We will now have to undergo an efficiency audit by the State Office of Administration every 2 years. So that will be an additional audit that we undergo. What that's going to look like, I don't know. That we'll probably learn that in our first audit. House Bill 149 by Representative Capriglione. You're going to see a lot of Representative Capriglione's bills. He got a lot of bills passed this session. But House Bill 149 is a very, very interesting bill, and it's the AI sandbox bill. And what the legislature has done is they have created a safe space for the entrepreneurial folks who develop AI. They have basically said, if you want to do that, you can come into Texas and do it, and we will limit your liability, and we will do away with the need for licensure in developing and deploying an AI system. But you're going to be under the strict scrutiny of both DIR and whatever regulatory board is in charge of that area where you're developing the AI to operate in. So if they wanted to do a mental health system, DIR would have to sign off on it, and then we're going to have to sign off on it. And they can operate and develop that. It's kind of an incubator, if you will, for these programs. But we, along with DIR, will have oversight to make sure that what they are doing is safe. And if it's not, we can pull the plug on it. But it's a very unique system. I'd never seen it before. And I think you're probably going to see a lot of development on this in the future. I think it's going to attract a lot of attention and a lot of money, probably. But
we determine if it's safe?
Yes.
There's an anecdote I remember at a meeting I heard about somebody who it was a psychologist who used a chatbot on their website, and somebody tested it out and said, I'm feeling like killing myself. And the chatbot, I forget what it said, but it was something like super dismissive. It was like, oh, that's, you shouldn't do that. And like, it was not okay. And like, they immediately shut it down. So because recognizing certainly the liability with this chatbot in the mental health setting, that somebody could miss something like that.
Yeah.
So that's certainly something where I'm a business guy, like I can only imagine the business liability underwriter saying, you want to do what? You want to, yeah, no.
Yeah.
And so to have that sort of liability protection in development that's quite something here in Texas.
Chair Harbauer is asking, how will we do it? I don't know the answer to that yet.
If we say it's unsafe,
Hey,
they
can you
disagree and they sue us.
Make sure everyone can hear you.
Sorry, Daryl answered my question. I was asking how we would determine that.
Well, I don't think there's any. I need to reread the bill again, but I don't think they can. I guess they could sue us always, but there's not like an appeal process if we or DIR say that is not safe. We don't want you to move forward with that. I don't know. I don't know how this is all going to work out.
Daryl, what's DIR?
The Department of Information Resources. It's basically the IT department for the entire state. Okay. Is what they are.
Is there anything else that we are in partnership with DIR on a review?
No, nothing like that. I've never seen anything like this.
Okay.
And what exactly is it they're trying to accomplish with it?
I don't know. I think probably
be pro-business with some safeguards, I suppose.
I think they know this is coming. They know it, and you're not going to stop it. And I suspect they are trying to put some sort of shackle on it that gives them some measure of control over it rather than just letting it run wild. And this, I'm not saying it just won't have warts. Doesn't have problems and just the mechanics of it, but there's nothing in place right now if somebody wanted to do this. I don't know what we would do if a company came in, set up developed an algorithm and said, we're going to try it out on, some population in Texas. some whatever, and somebody complained to us. I'm like, what would I do if it's a venture capital firm out of Seattle, Washington, that owns and operates this thing? That's not one of our licensees. What can I do? Cease and desist? Then you got to go try to see if you can get the attorney general involved to bring suit. Whereas through this mechanism, at least I'll have, or this body will have a direct say along with DR and say, you're going to have to come before us and explain what you're doing and why, we want to see everything. And I guess you guys could bring in whatever experts you wanted to assist you in that. And then you can make an informed decision on what you want to allow.
Sounds like the point, though, is that if venture capital just did this and venture capital wrote a bad algorithm and people were killing themselves by their bad, missing suicidal signs or whatever, I mean, any sort of malfeasance, outside this, they would probably bear full liability to be sued to the hilt for whatever a jury would award if something went poorly. If they do it inside this kind of safe harbor, if you will, it sounds like they're limited in liability.
Yeah.
But they also get somebody checking their work.
Yes.
Us.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess it's sort of like the Wild West. I mean, the new sheriff in town isn't going to solve all the crime, but at least there's something.
Yeah.
So
that's my take on what, why they're doing it, is because without it, there just won't be any kind of policing on it right now. So,
okay.
House Bill 229 by Representative Troxclair, it changes the law, or makes clear that when agencies or governmental agencies or entities are collecting what we call vital statistic data, just demographic data, you are to use the male and female criteria only. So that's what it does. It specifies that. Now we don't have anything I don't think that's going to be a problem on. And I don't think it will preclude, an agency from saying prefer not to answer or making the question optional, which is, I think, the case of how it is in like our workforce survey right now. I think we have prefer not to answer, and I think it's voluntary anyway. It's optional. So that doesn't affect any of that. House Bill 2340 by Metcalf. For those of you that do in TV land that do child custody evaluations, you're going to need to be able to demonstrate some continuing education or training for individuals. It's like IDD, I think, certain types of individuals, intellectually disabled individuals. You're going to have to demonstrate some specific training if your report is going to contain information about those types of individuals. And you're going to have to maintain continuing education before you will be considered to be qualified as a child custody evaluator. I don't yet know how that's going to work in our rules. That may require a rule change. We may have to change up some of our rules to reflect that qualification. It also puts some restrictions on access to evaluators, of child custody evaluators. Button, House Bill 2598. This pretty big change. Doesn't affect anybody out there in the licensee world, but we're going to have to change a lot of stuff in our rules and on our forms because it changes the title of licensed specialist in school psychology to school psychologist. So that's actually going to be a lot of work for us at the agency.
Because the way we changed the rule, you could use either of them. It recognized both, and now in the law, LSSP is no longer recognized at all.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now it's school psychologist. So we have to change everything.
We were one of 2 states that used LSSP.
Right.
I don't know who the last.
There were like 3 or 4, but there weren't many. Yeah, the vast majority use school psychologist. House Bill 3512, another Capriglione bill. You guys are now, in addition to the cybersecurity video that I make y'all watch every January, you're now going to have to take an AI security training video every January. So don't hate me. They did that to you, not me. 5195 House Bill, Capriglione's a modernization of agency websites. We just overhauled ours. McGregor did that. So I don't think we're going to have to do anything there for a while. 5196 is a telework by state employees. That's going to, I suspect, I'm anticipating some follow-up direction from the governor's office on that now that bill is passed, but that'll be something we need to look at.
Daryl, you skipped 3801.
Oh, sorry. The creation of the 3801 by Representative Orr. This is kind of a big one in that it creates the Health Professions Workforce Coordinating Council and abolishes the statewide Health Coordinating Council. We were not a member of the statewide Health Coordinating Council. but we are an express or a named member of the Health Professions Workforce Coordinating Council. So I think what it does is they are trying to focus this group's investigative and research focus more on workforce issues, whereas the statewide Health Coordinating Council had a much broader charge, if you will. And I think the legislature is trying to get it to focus more on workforce issues. What do we need to do to address our workforce shortages? And we are actually included in the group this time. We were not before, although we did work with the statewide Health Coordinating Council a lot. But now we're a sitting member on it now. 5629 and Senate Bill 1818 are amendments to the military licensing laws. I'm not sure how that's going to work out yet. The military licensure is so, well, I mean, I don't mind admitting it's convoluted. I know everybody out there who's ever gone through it, is clapping right now, but it's convoluted. It's difficult to understand. It is for y'all. It is for us. And we're going to have to figure out how we craft a rule that encapsulates both the House bill and the new Senate bill. And there was a change at the federal level. So we've got to figure out how to merge all three together now. So you're going to see, we're going to be coming back to you probably next time with a change to the military licensing rule that we're going to make some changes for. Senate Bill 14, which is the DOGE Act. I think I've mentioned this before. It creates it's an Office of Regulatory Efficiency within the governor's office. They will have the ability to review and recommend both, every aspect of our operations, rulemaking, just how we conduct business, and give recommendations on efficiency. I don't know how that's going to look. I don't think the governor's office knows how that's going to look yet because I haven't heard anything out of them on it. But I would expect that to start, you'll hear some stirrings on it here pretty quick. Senate Bill 646. This is a good one. Doesn't affect the agency at all, but it affects everybody out there in the profession. Student loan forgiveness. If you are a mental health provider, associates, I forget associates and one of the categories in social work, they were all added to the student loan forgiveness program. So pretty much all of our licensees are now covered under the student loan forgiveness program. That was a big deal. Senate Bill 912 is just, you guys have already done it by pursuing the CE broker as the online management. 1080 is going to be something that Patrick, Robert, and I are working on. It deals with criminal history and disqualification from licensure. We're gonna have to look at that and see. I don't think that's going to affect us all that much. It looks like it would, but I don't think it will. I think it'll be pretty easy to incorporate. Senate Bill 1188 by Cold Course. The only reason I have this on here is I want licensees to be aware of this. If you are using AI in your practice to come up with diagnoses or the course of treatment, you need to don't just rely on that AI program. You need to be looking at everything and checking that AI system's work because you're responsible for it, not the AI. It won't be an acceptable defense if you go, well, I ran it through whatever, AI system, and that's what it came up with. You're the one with the license. You're going to be held accountable for it. And that's really what Cold Course's provision is saying. So just make sure you don't get too comfortable and too lazy with using those AI systems out there, folks, because that'll jump up and get you. 1401 is the mental health pipeline program. Doesn't affect us. We already talked about 1818. And then Senate Bill 2587, for us, this is a big one. This is a big win because this is what, for LPC associates, y'all never really had clear statutory authority for your associate licensure. Now you do. And that also clears up a big problem we had with the feds. Because of that, because you didn't have a statute that said this is the LPC associate license, the feds wouldn't let us run fingerprint background checks on you, or they'd told us to quit. Now that has been corrected. So once again, Senator Zaffarini and I think Representative Guillen saved the day there. Guillen has kind of been a champion on that kind of stuff for agencies in the past, so I really appreciate that. And that's it as far as the legislative update goes, unless y'all have any questions.
I'm not prepared to speak on it here off the cuff, but that loan forgiveness repayment thing is a pretty big deal.
Very big deal.
It's a huge deal,
Yeah.
and I would encourage anybody going through that to look at that. It's sizable. So raised the caps on almost everybody, it looks like.
Chair Balamowitz, would
Yes,
it be
ma'am.
possible to maybe have, kind of like how we had the invited testimony, could we have somebody come and do invited testimony regarding the loan
I
repayment?
think it's a great idea. Either we'll figure something out on getting more information on that for the licensees.
The next item up is going to.
Hang on just a second.
Okay.
Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of wrap up the legislative update in the same way I did at our LPC board, and that's a thank you to staff, because that is 6 months worth of long hours and work, and you just kind of reduced it to about a 20-minute update. On behalf of BHEC, thank y'all for everything that you did in this session. It's, we choose to focus on the wins and learn from the losses, but thank you very much for all the work you did on that.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Hellbauer, for noting that.
And thank you for all the updates you give us too. It's like, you constantly give us updates to keep us abreast. So appreciate that. Nice work.
Sometimes I feel like I annoy y'all with all the updates I send y'all.
We just are annoyed by what you tell us sometimes.
Oh, okay.
But it's what we need to hear. So anyway.
The next item up is 5C. It's going to be the review and approve a request for a formal AG opinion. You've got the letter from Representative Toth there, where he intimates that he believes our licensees are subject to Senate Bill 14 from the 88th. I visited with Representative Toth, and I passed along. I did not feel like our folks were subject to that, but if he felt compelled to do so, if he sent us a letter, I would bring it to y'all and recommend that we request an AG opinion on that. And so that's how you got that in your packet there today, but that would need y'all's vote of approval on that.
And you've got the draft letter in there that we would send to AG Paxton.
Correct.
His office.
Correct.
For that, essentially at Representative Toth's request.
Correct.
And that comes down to a clarification on the definition of healthcare provider.
Correct.
Okay. Historically, how long have we used our operating definition of healthcare provider for the agency's purposes?
Yeah. Healthcare provider is defined several different ways throughout the code. And so it really depends on where you're looking as to really how it's defined.
Okay.
My concern when I read, and I forget the provision, I think it's 169 of the Health and Safety Code. My concern is when you look at just this pure definition of healthcare provider, you would look at it and go, yeah, I can see how that might include our folks. But when you look at the rest of the chapter, the subchapter that it's in, it all deals with medicine or nursing or midwifery, and those types of things. None of the procedures that are banned or outlawed by that are anything that are within the scope of practice. Dr. Cartwright, Dr. Merchant, none of y'all could do any of this stuff. So when I look at it, I'm like, I don't know how we fall in that. I cannot see how we fall in that. But we have a state representative who feels like we do, and we need it. Anyway, I just think probably the safest and most respectful course of action is to seek an AG opinion.
I think this is similar to, y'all know I like analogies. This is like in baseball when you call New York for instant replay and there's disagreement on the field, and we have a legislator who is asking us to call somebody else to make the call.
Yeah.
We can talk about it. We can all have our own opinions, but I am of the opinion to give deference to the legislature. And if a legislator is asking us to ask for that opinion, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I've seen some confusion like with physician or non-physician too, like in the psychology world, we see that sometimes, and it gets very ambiguous and you don't really know what to call yourself, because I don't consider myself a physician.
Yeah.
But that terminology gets thrown around a lot. Kind of reminds me of that, but it is important in the sense of, it could have repercussions in terms of reimbursement from Medicare, Medicaid, things like that too. So in terms of what they reimburse and how they identify it or categorize it. So I think it's a great idea. We're getting clarification on it.
Any further discussion or questions?
No.
Any motions?
I'll make a motion to petition the Attorney General in this manner.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to request the AG opinion pursuant to the letter we received from Representative Toth. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it.
When might we expect to hear back from the AG's office?
That's a that's a
Pat that one down to Patrick.
I think they're supposed to respond within 120 days, but we've or issue an opinion, but they can also issue a letter that says we need more time. So, and we've received that before. So we may get a letter in 120 days that says we're considering this issue and we need more time to issue it. So
Okay. We should not expect a response prior to our October meeting.
I doubt it.
Okay.
October this year.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
The next item is going to be the review and approval of the revised ethics policy, and that's following Governor Abbott's hardening order, what we call the hardening order. It's just we have to update our ethics policy there. So I just need y'all to approve that ethics policy.
all right. Without objection, is there any objection to approving that? Hearing no objection, that's approved.
And then the next item, Mr. Chair, this may be one you want to take over.
This G?
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Or no, I'm sorry, E.
E, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm not going to go into the whole details of this. This is, I guess the motion on this is if we want to put this or do any rulemaking on this or.
Well, I mean, like you and I were talking, I am seeing when we go to conferences, one of the things, there's an issue that has popped up, and that is the growing use of ketamine therapy. I'll be honest with you, I was completely ignorant of ketamine's use in therapy until I'd gone to an ASPPB or ASWB education conference last year, and that's when I first heard of it and came back and started looking, and I'm like, wow, this is really prevalent, and I knew nothing about it, and I thought I missed the boat, and I didn't know if we needed to do something, if that's something we needed to address in regulations.
Yeah, so this is for me, it's more of a question because I was aware of this. I started looking around to it. I actually went through as far as my Apple Pay about to take my payment with my Face ID before I had to cancel it by answering a questionnaire about my health history and whatnot and what was wrong with me. And I think the worst thing I said is that I have trouble sleeping and I have some anxiety or I have some worries from time to time. And with a couple of questions, I was ready to get my ketamine prescription, and as part of a therapeutic thing. And to me, that's a little bit alarming for a lot of things, especially in the context of I've testified on prescriptive authority, and so it feels like the Wild West right now. It's a frontier in mental health therapy. I have looked around at some of our licensees that appear to, while not prescribing or endorsing the use of mushrooms and other mind-altering substances, seem to be friendly to it. And so my concern is that we've got this weird space where you have off-label use of a legal ketamine's legal, and people are prescribing it off-label. I understand that, but you've got what appears to be a little bit loosey-goosiness with how it's being prescribed, coupled with other mind-altering drugs that are illegal amongst, what's accepted out there in therapy. So I don't know how we deal with that. And again, this is something that if we're going to have any policy changes on it, it does need to originate at the professional board, the member board level. This is not something that the council can initiate. It's on the agenda because I have questions about it, and I'm sure we'll get more comment from the public if we put it on the agenda, but wanted to bring that to the board's attention, the council's attention.
But going back to, I'm not exactly sure where you were looking to get the prescription, but I mean, we don't have prescription, we can't prescribe ketamine.
That's
if
right.
somebody is using ketamine, they have to get a prescription from a medical doctor.
Right.
So I don't think that we'd be able to rule. I mean, we can't restrict a medical doctor's ability to provide ketamine. So I feel like that would be outside of our scope.
That you're probably right on that part of our scope. The point is that when I was doing this, I was going to a therapy site that's forwarding me out to apparently a doctor that they work with, and I'm doing this online thing, ready to take my money and send me some ketamine.
I think part of the difference too is, with ketamine, it's prescribed by a medical doctor, and then typically a medical doctor needs to be kind of supervising the
administration of it.
Exactly, and ensuring that. And then now in some states they're allowing psychologists to do that. I mean, I will say, just off the record, I mean, ketamine is nothing to play around with. From I know where that has gone bad with people, so it's just kind of scares me a little bit. But honestly, I don't know where we're going with this. And then I'm also seeing a lot, where they're talking about AI being involved in and the presentation of that administration. And I just think we got to be kind of careful and definitely think this out as in our respective professional boards, but also see what these other states are doing. But definitely not a drug to be played with. And as I know on the psych board, we've got to be very, very careful about, entering into the medical realm there. So just word of caution.
Fair.
I mean, it's my understanding that most of the boards already have a rule regarding emerging practices. And I feel like that rule would cover any therapists that are engaging in ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. So I don't feel compelled to create a rule specific to ketamine. If staff were to bring us one, obviously we would consider it, but I don't feel compelled to create one.
Yeah, and I'm not up here saying I want to draft a rule and bring it to you. I'm legitimately trying to figure out. I'm throwing it out there so that if y'all go, oh my gosh, yes, we do, y'all go back and draft something up. This is us trying to get feedback from y'all. What do you think? I mean,
yeah, because it gets into the disciplinary areas of things as well. I mean, we don't have kind of, I guess, guidance on that or guardrails, then we're going to be in a really tough situation when we make these decisions for disciplinary actions and things like that could happen. Suicide, or there could be things that definitely could happen. So, but yeah, I'm glad you're bringing it to our attention, because I think it is. I mean, I'm hearing more and more about it every day.
But right now in Texas, it's only prescribed by medical doctors. Is that still the rule here in Texas?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they are coordinating care through mental health providers. Is that kind of what's happening?
I only know of 2 ways for it to happen. So one way is somebody can consult with a medical physician, who the physician would prescribe and administer.
When you say administer, they're giving it to them. They're not
correct.
giving them a prescription.
Correct. It is usually like an IV, or sometimes there's like ones you can put under your tongue. But like they would administer the ketamine, and a mental health professional would be in the room with them, like assisting.
And who is that? Oh, I'm sorry, John. Who is that mental health professional working for? The MD or the patient?
Either one. I mean, they could be. I mean, they could be contracted with a medical doctor, where so the medical doctor provides the ketamine and the therapist is in the room. How they're getting paid, if they're getting paid by the physician or if they're getting paid by the client, I'm not positive. But
wouldn't that matter where the rule applied? Who was?
Oh, perhaps. But the other way to do it is you can do it the way that Chair Belamowitz was looking into it, which is you can get a physician to write a prescription and they send you in the mail. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically ketamine that you'd put under your tongue. And then you would take your ketamine to your mental health professional, and you would essentially take it in the therapist's office. And so you would be doing it in the therapist's office with a therapist.
Okay.
So my question is,
expert on this. This is just my limited understanding.
Yeah, and that's sort of my understanding as well. My question is something that is essentially anesthesia taken in one of our licensees' offices. Granted, a medical doctor wrote the prescription. I don't know. They take too much of it. I don't know. I don't know what happens. That's the thing. And so the point is that if I can get a prescription and have to turn my phone away from me because it's about to take my money so quickly, because I said I worry sometimes and have trouble sleeping, that it's ready to give me ketamine and take my money.
Because if you're in my office and you stop breathing, you're out of luck.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm asking the question that this is certain, and what I'm seeing is a very tight. It seems like a very tight knit business relationship between the mental health professional, who I would ostensibly go take this in, and whoever the prescribing doctor is, and whatever financial relationship that is. I'll just say, as the as the test consumer, you know, I couldn't tell where one where one began and the other ended. So
I honestly see it a lot more with a medical doctor. They prescribe the medication, and they have like a nurse or nurse practitioner, maybe a nurse practitioner that's kind of implementing at that point. But
that sounds responsible.
right? I mean, but or maybe the way it should be. But I know that we're seeing all kinds of things coming up, so it'll be interesting.
I understand, and again, I don't want anyone in the public to think that this is a pretense to come after people or something, because it's not. But it's an emerging area of therapy that certainly has risks, as we've seen with high profile, you know, deaths and addictions to it. We need to get smart on it as a council, because I'm not smart on it yet, and so I'm looking to get smart on it, and hoping that our mental health professionals on the council and on the boards and in the public, you know, for public protection, help us get smart on this, because we need to. So,
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes.
offer just
Please.
a tangential? We are already in the works of revamping and rolling back out the standardization committee to look at the idea of emerging practices and emerging technology from the standpoint of making sure the board's rules are clear about training that's required, confidentiality, and certainly scope of practice fitting in with new technology and new practices. Ketamine was an aspect of that we want to look at. And so we could certainly, within that conversation, also talk about, maybe as a side quest, if you will, I think the aspect that you're raising is how far can a licensee responsibly go down a path that is maybe regulated or unregulated in assisting, because that is our sister agencies and other jurisdictions at these conferences have raised these questions of, particularly in addictions therapy, is it okay for a licensee to come and take ketamine on their own choice in the licensee's office and then be there? Is it okay for a licensee or
Patient?
sorry,
Okay.
not okay for the licensee to take ketamine at
I was about to ask.
file therapy? Sorry, is it okay for a patient to do that if a licensee has a patient who is addicted to an illegal substance? The question has been raised: does the licensee have to turn them away if the client has an illegal substance on their possession, or they know they've just taken it? What duty is there to provide treatment or not in that situation? That is a hard question.
It is a hard question.
Other jurisdictions are grappling.
Well, see, and I've seen it. I've seen it in our discipline hearings. I've seen it out on the internet. You know, mental health practitioners who are friendly to illegal substances and do your stuff. Come on in and let's talk about it. Like, and that's encouraging people to do that under the guise of, under the banner of our license. I have concerns about. You know, this is all very emerging, and I mean, even if you look at what the legislature's done with like ibogaine, like it's certainly an emerging thing. It's certainly a new frontier. I feel like regulation's going to have to catch up with what's happening, and responsibly.
So sorry. To
No,
interrupt.
go ahead.
Do we still have the rule that prohibits a licensee from encouraging illicit drug use?
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay,
I'm sure.
so we could still get people
Yeah,
on
I mean,
that. It's
if
happening though. I know that.
somebody is encouraging their client to go use pot and come to session, like that would be
Or shrooms.
or shrooms
Yeah.
or whatever, that would not be okay.
Yeah.
But ketamine's legal. Yes, exactly. That's
Yeah,
what I
ketamine's
was
legal.
saying.
Well, I mean, I have talked with counterparts in other jurisdictions where the issue has come up of the ketamine was obtained illegally, and then they want to use it, and it's like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, I don't know. You let me know when y'all figure that out. And anyway, we're just we know this is coming.
The other thing too, I feel like we legally, I've heard you guys talk about this a lot as the lawyers in the room, that we're regulating speech. Like what we do here, this is a speech profession. We're talking, you know, it's not really laying hands on people. All of a sudden now we've got the situation where we have drugs, the on-label use as anesthesia being part of therapy. That's not just talking anymore. That's something different, especially when it's done in concert.
But we've had antidepressants, so Xanax, Zoloft. I mean, that's been part of.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess the thing about this is that it's actually like taken in therapy. I mean, you shouldn't be driving after it. Like this is different than I took my Zoloft this morning. That's my point.
but
I'm just glad y'all are as confused as we are. I mean, that's kind of comforting.
Anyway, we can table it for here. I think it's a question. It's a frontier, and it's one of those things that if we're not aware of it, we're going to be playing catch up, and it's going to be the Wild West.
And I do think it'll be interesting to see what other states do with this too. And I think we need to keep our eyes and ears open for sure.
Is anybody aware of like somebody who knows about this that could help us understand it? I mean,
there's a ketamine clinic in
Yeah.
Abilene, and we go and tour it every year. So that's the only reason I know about it is because I take my students and we go tour the ketamine clinic. Yeah. Well, I mean, they do other things too, but ketamine is a part of is a part of the treatment that they provide. And it's a medical doctor.
Let me just ask this.
Yeah.
Am I off base for being concerned at being so easy to get a prescription?
I have no idea.
I mean, that just feels like that.
But we're not doing that.
Pardon?
I mean, it's not our license that are making it easy to get prescriptions.
Fair. But in where I was looking for it, it was through one of our licensees.
If the use of ketamine as part of a mental health consultation with one of our licensees, if that has been approved by a medical doctor who's issued the prescription to use it, there's not a rule violation on behalf of our licensees.
Yeah, I see that. Fair.
But until our licensees have the authority to issue a prescription, which we're not heading towards, then
I mean, that's a discussion.
Okay.
That's a discussion. I mean, the bill didn't happen, but I mean, I went and testified on it this past session. Mary Gonzalez got a hearing on it at the end of session when.
What did you testify to?
That we were prepared to, if the legislature were to give psychologists prescriptive authority, that we're prepared to do it. And I also, we have prescriptive authority. It exists in the state in exempt settings already, in the VA or the Army. And I've always talked about that in the abstract until one of them showed up next to me and testified about it. I was like, I've heard of you, but here you are. And so that's a discussion that's happening. And
so that's only psychologists.
At this point, yes.
Like it's a couple of states. I can't remember exactly which ones. I know like Guam, and then there's like certain areas that you can't. Maybe Louisiana.
Louisiana, New Mexico, Idaho,
Oregon,
Illinois, Utah, Guam.
I always thought about it though, with the idea though, and I believe did the bill not talk about dispensing as well, the giving dispensing?
Yes.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing in this context of this conversation. Imagine a scenario though where, painkillers or whatever, you go to your medical doctor, it's tracked, goes into a registry, you go to the pharmacy, get it filled, comes back to you. Okay, so there's multiple steps in that process, going through a medical doctor, going through the pharmacy, multiple licensed professionals, and it's also tracked in a database to see if you're, do you have a dozen of these prescriptions and are you selling it? Like that'll get flagged. The difference is that some of the discussions, and this is where I'm concerned as an agency, like not getting caught behind the power curve. Imagine for a second that we've not contemplated this and the bill passes in such a way that we're going to give psychologists, say, prescriptive authority. Imagine they also get dispensing authority. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a psychologist who it's like judge, jury, and executioner, but it's like it's the doctor, the prescription writer, the prescription filler, and administering it. And so if you think again about ketamine, it's on label as anesthesia. If you think again about the number of professionals that are involved when anesthesia is given, from probably the main physician or surgeon to the anesthesiologist, there's too many people. There's a lot of people in the room. Why? Because we're dealing with pretty heavy stuff. And so again, just thinking about the permutations where we could be in a situation where our licensees, we've not thought about it, potentially are the, script writer, script filler, and administering it all in one spot. It takes a lot of a lot of checks and balances out of the system. And that's my concern, is if we, again, haven't thought about this, what then?
I'd be interested in seeing model programs from other states.
Cool.
And how it's been handled there, what kind of data they have, if they consider it to be successful, or whether they just kind of opened up a can of worms that they didn't realize.
Mm-hmm.
All right. For any further discussion, I'm happy to just leave that tabled. Anyone else has anything? Hearing none. Okay, moving on. Thank you for that discussion. Very much. We've got two things in executive session. I'm going to leave F and G for the edification of the public. We'll take those up last if we need to. We may go into executive session for F. I think we're definitely going to have to go into executive session for G. But again, to keep this thing rolling for the public, we'll go on to rulemaking.
All right. So the first up under rulemaking is going to be the proposed and adopted rules for BHEC. We've got 3 proposed rules there. You've got them in your packets. You can see what they're, unless you need me to lay it out.
I'm pulling it up right now.
First, just standardizes the shelf life of a pending application.
1 second, real quick. Can we take a vote on these to approve and propose all in one? Do you want separate votes for approvals and
separate votes for proposals and adoptions?
Will you just lay out then for, because the recording is our minutes. Will you just lay out all of the proposed first?
Sure.
That we can potentially vote on.
882
questions.
Yeah, sure.
Pull it
Proposed
out.
rule 882.1. Simply standardize the change in it standardizes the shelf life of an application. Currently, we use two different shelf lives: 90 days for psychology apps, 1 year, I believe, for all the other boards. We just want to make it 180 days for everybody, so that it simplifies it. 882.2 is just provides staff with guidance on how to calculate supervised experience. And then 882.21 changes it so that individuals who are on delinquent license status can move their license to an active status. There's no reason not to allow that.
May I make a motion to adopt these, or to adopt these proposed rules?
Propose these rules.
The proposed rules, yeah.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to propose. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it.
And then on the adopted rules, we've got 3 882.50 continuing education and audits. This just gives, it just puts express authority for us to use CE broker in our rules. 884.10 is investigation of complaints. This adds some language that is really, it's designed to ensure and guard against licensees being able to claim coaching as a defense. In other words, in a nutshell, if what you are doing is something you would typically think of as the practice of psychology, counseling, marriage and family therapy, then it's going to be presumed that you are operating under your license unless you take some express steps to disclaim it. And it's very clear, and there's just no way you would have to disclaim it in such a way that it is undeniable that you are not engaged in the practice of whatever. So it's designed to, like I say, guard against those cases where we have disciplined somebody for something and say they are suspended or revoked, and then they come back later on doing the same thing, but they're claiming it's coaching now. But you're not going to be able to do that anymore. So
if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck,
it is.
You don't come to us and tell us it's a goose, it's a duck.
Right.
Okay. Discussion, motion?
Robert, you got anything to add to that?
Nope. Yep. Okay.
Any motions?
I'll make
Well,
a motion to adopt the
Second.
as
It's been
stated by Daryl.
moved and seconded to adopt the rules as stated by the executive director. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Say no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Marriage and family therapists.
Mr. Chair, I'll take all the board proposed rules, and since they are generally grouped topically, I'll actually lay out the proposed rules for each of the four. So it'll be 7A, 8A, 9A, and 10A, because we are generally doing the same things across all four.
Hang on a second. Everyone can hear that, correct?
So
Ryan, can you confirm that's okay? Good. Let's make sure you're on mute, but I guess it's coming through the microphone, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind. Good. Just want to make sure.
So generally, the rules package for each of these boards are dealing with first collaboration across licenses. And so we are harmonizing across all four license boards that licensees, if they are treating a patient who is also seeing another mental health provider with a license under the board, they all have the same duty to get informed consent and notify the other mental health provider and strive to have a collaborative relationship. It is not a requirement that you must agree with each other, but it's sharing the same language so that you are under a duty to let each other know. Professional courtesy, if you will. The other rules are expanding on the supervision relationship. The largest of that is that if somebody, an associate or other licensee who's being supervised, if they receive a complaint against them, they will be required to share that complaint with their supervisor. Because often under the rules, the supervisor may themselves be potentially liable for that conduct. And at the very least, we would hope the supervisor would help the supervisee reform their conduct and not get in trouble again. The other idea is the remediation plan across all four boards. If you are a supervisor and you're supervising someone who you do not feel like has the correct skills, you need to not simply wait until the end of the supervisory relationship and say, well, that was fun, but I'm not going to grant you these hours because you didn't do a good enough job. You need to develop what's called a remediation plan and tell the supervisee what they need to be improving on. The other half of that is that if the supervisee then chooses to go get a different supervisor, they can do that, but they need to share the remediation plan with that new supervisor so they can at least choose whether or not to continue that. So just in short, those are the big things. I'll run through the rules themselves. Under 7A, 80144 is that collaboration with adding that collaboration across licenses. 801-142 is that complaint, sharing that complaint or sharing the remediation plan. 801-143 is allowing the supervisors to share those remediation plans and updating language about if you lose your supervisor status, you can't keep supervising and those hours don't count and you have to pay back any fees you got. Under 8A, 465.2 is that sharing of the complaint or sharing of the remediation plan. 465.34 is that collaboration across licensing. Under 9A, 681.91 is the updates on supervision language, sharing the complaint, sharing the remediation. 681.93 is other updates to the supervisor language. LPC actually already had the collaboration rule, so it doesn't have that one. And then finally, 10A are changes to the social work board rules. 781.303 is that collaboration across licenses. 781.401 through 407 is a whole rewrite package of the social work rules regarding supervision and licensure qualifications. The changes I expressed are mainly the changes that are different. Otherwise, the changes are significantly just reordering the rule language into a more clean and easily understandable set of rules. And so that's why you see so many repeals and replaces. And then the last one on that, 781.805, is their schedule of sanctions that's just being updated to reflect all the rule changes. So those are all the proposed rules from the boards before you.
All right. So just to restate for everyone following along at home, that is all of the rules proposed on 7A, 8A, 9A, and 10A. Without exception, all of them. The motion, any other comments or discussion or question? The motion would be to propose the rules as just laid out by Mr. Romig.
I'll make the motion.
It's been moved to propose by Mr. Bridges.
I'll second.
And it's been seconded by Mr. Hallbauer. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And now on to rules for adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, these are a similar grouping, and so you could take them all together. 7B under the MFT is the requirements for continuing education. These are the changes to the cultural competency language that has previously been discussed and subject of public comment. Under 8B, you have 463.35, which is that same CE rule change. In addition, you have 465.38, which is an update to the description of school psychology. It's aligning with national practice standards. It doesn't expand the scope. It's just updating the language to reflect the full range of their scope. Under 9B, you have 681.72, which is removing an expiration date of the supervision course to become an LPC supervisor. It just means that once somebody has taken the required course, that is sufficient. It doesn't expire over time. And then 681.140 is that same CE language change. And then finally, under 10B, you have 781.501, which is that same continuing education language change.
Very good. So for everyone, again, just to recap and restate that for everyone following along at home, that's everything on 7B, 8B, 9B, and 10B. Any discussion? Hearing none, entertaining a motion to to adopt those rules.
So moved.
Been moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. All right, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. 12:20. We'll be back at 12:25. Come back into session. Is that right? Are there other rules?
Are we going to go immediately into?
Oh, sorry.
executive?
We'll go immediately into executive session at that point.
So
Do we have a?
we might as well just go ahead and go into.
Oh, I take that back. I guess I take that back. We can do 11. Y'all want to do 11 now? Sorry, let's do 11 now.
Yeah, I would do 11 and 12 now.
Sorry,
and
let's
then
do
go into
that.
Executive.
Report from member boards. So I'll turn it over. Everyone wants to talk.
Do you want us to go in a particular order?
Not in particular order, just volunteer. I think Mr. Hallbauer.
Please, Dr. Merchant.
Dr. Merchant.
Okay.
Dr. Merchant, you're recognized.
So I represent the Marriage and Family Therapy Board. Some of the things that we have been doing recently, we conducted a CE survey in the spring. And so we are still in the process of processing those results, but I'm excited for some of the things we've learned there so far. We are also in the process of collecting data for a supervisee survey, just trying to understand the experience of supervisees in Texas. This fall and winter, we hope to follow that with a supervisor survey. So we're trying to understand just the supervisor's experiences as well. And just trying to use all three of those surveys to figure out how we can maybe just if we do need any rule changes based on any of those three surveys. We are also in the process of creating a supervision guidance form for our website, just basically aid supervisors and supervisees, just kind of understanding the rights and responsibilities of both. And we also have been reviewing the TAS and social media guidelines that are on the website as well. So that's kind of what we've been up to lately.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can go ahead and give a few quick updates on the psych board. This is Dr. Cartwright. Obviously, we kind of spoke about this earlier, but we want to congratulate Ryan Bridges for now being our chair on the psych board. So we're really excited about that. And we also want to welcome Brian Wrench, who's going to be our new public member that's kind of taking John's spot. And obviously, we want to congratulate John on chair of BHEC. So
thank you
on behalf of the psych board. A couple quick things. Robert already mentioned the issues regarding ASPPB, and obviously we're talking about creation of our own exam now as well. But there is a town hall meeting tomorrow, so I'll be attending that, and I'm sure a few of the others on the psych board will be attending. So we'll hopefully get some updates on what's happening there over in ASPPB land. Let's see here. Those were the main things. One thing that I thought was interesting in our meeting too, obviously, we've had a lot of discussion about the CE requirement issue. And one of the things that we decided on the psych board, there's been a lot of thought put into this, and it started off that it was almost too specific. Now it's a little too open or so. There have been some issues with the language. But what we think will be very, very helpful that we're going to hopefully enact or at least get the ball rolling on is having FAQs that will help cover questions related to what does qualify under those specific populations that we talked about. So just to give some guidance, especially to new licensees that are going to, they may have a lot of questions about, well, what does this mean? And how do I answer this? So we think that'll be very helpful to provide those. And so we're going to be working on those for those licensees and current licensees and hopefully new licensees. That is just about it really for the select board.
Chair Bridges, do you have anything to add?
I don't, Mark. Thank you for everything that you just spoke about there. Just wanted to say I appreciate the warm welcome to BHEC. I'm looking forward to serving in both of these roles. I have very large shoes to fill on the psych board, thanks to Chair Blamowitz. He did an outstanding job, and he will be missed on the psych board, but looking forward to working with him in this new capacity. So thank you guys for the warm welcome, and hopefully I will get to see you in person in October for that meeting.
Thank you, Chair Bridges.
I'll go ahead with social work. So we, if you noticed, we've been working diligently and methodically to try to improve understanding of our rules related to supervision and how that should work. So you see those 14 proposals that we made today. So we're working slowly to getting things lined out so that's easier to understand. And we took our social work board meeting on tour this last time and went up to Dallas and had a nice meeting there and had some public turnout that was neat to have for a change.
Thank you. Chair Hallbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you noted at the beginning of our meeting, we have 4 new board members on the LPC board. That's unprecedented, at least in my time. That 4/9 of our board is brand new. So we're excited to see what our new members are going to bring. 3 of them are public members, and they all seem very engaged, very interested in participating and bringing their perspectives to our board. So we're excited about having them. And one thing I will add, Daryl negligently did not mention that in his legislative update, House Concurrent Resolution number 29, which designated the month of April as Counseling Awareness Month. So I just want to make sure everyone is clear which of the boards the legislature likes the best So next April, when you're in Counseling Awareness Month, I'm taking complete credit for this, even though I did nothing to get this passed. But no, we're excited. April is now Counseling Awareness Month, and we're looking
just to kind of chime in there. Social work has had March for years.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a good thing that like at the end of March, April can clean up everything that went wrong in March. No, we're excited about that. So House Concurrent Resolution number 29, April,
Very good.
Counseling Awareness Month.
I love it.
That's it.
All right. Thank you for that update. Recommendations for agenda items for next council meeting. I know we talked about loan forgiveness to be a topic to discuss.
More drug talk.
Was that ketamine? I'm certainly open to keeping that on the agenda. I don't know what the action item is on it, but I think it's something that we need to continue to look at, and not just ketamine, but any type of emerging care like that poses risks to the public. You think?
Yeah, I was going to say similarly with AI as well.
AI,
yeah. It's just so much is happening so fast that we want to keep in front if we can.
Yeah.
At least try our best to
Was
see
that
someone in front.
Rep Capriglione? Was that his bill? Who was it? The AI bill? King. Representative King's office might be getting a phone call. Hang on. We have some homework to do on AI. Okay. Any other ideas? Again, if you think of anything, obviously the agenda is fluid until it's set. So email me or Daryl. All right. With that, let's go ahead. Anything else? Okay. I think I've not left anything else. Let's take a 5-minute break. We're going to go into executive session in about 5 minutes. After that, we'll come back in to gavel out. But for the edification of the public, the only things that we have remaining on our agenda, to know what you're not missing, we're going to have a discussion about items. What is that section? 5, F, and G, and that's discussion of pending litigation and evaluation of the executive director's job performance, and then we'll gavel out after that. Yes, sir.
Do you want to just go straight into executive session rather than coming back from break and then having to read your script and go into executive?
That's right. We'll go into
straight into
session.
executive
Yeah,
session.
and then we'll just stand at ease for 5 minutes. Okay. So the executive council will go into closed session at this time pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act on agenda item number 5F, discussion of pending litigation to seek legal advice from its attorneys regarding pending litigation under section 551.071 of the Government Code, and on agenda item number 5G, evaluation of the executive director's job performance, together with any personnel action warranted following the evaluation to consider personnel matters under section 551.074 of the Government Code. The date is June 24th, 2025, and the time is 12:30 p.m. To all members of the public in attendance, you may stay in this meeting room or you may stay logged into this Zoom meeting. The council members will leave, and once the council closed session is finished, the council will reconvene in the open meeting.
Just for the public's edification, we'll leave the webinar up and running so that you can stay logged in. The recording will be stopped. The cameras will be turned off. And then when we come back in, everything will be turned back on: cameras, audio, and the recording.
For those of us that are doing this remote, is there a separate link that's going to be coming out? I didn't notice that.
Yes, Patrick's going to send that to you now.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Back in 5 minutes. The Executive Council has now reconvened in open session on June 24th, 2025, and the time is now 2:16 p.m. All right, we're going to take up agenda item. Sorry, I should have had this ready. We're going to take up agenda item 5G, evaluation of the executive director's job performance, together with any personnel action warranted following the evaluation. And we just had executive session to tackle that. So any discussion or well, actually, I want to just take a moment here to say on the record, Daryl, how proud we are of you as our executive director. The job that you do in helping this agency navigate all of the problems and issues that we're tackling over at the legislature, with our licensees, with the professions, I believe you're responsive. And I think that people have figured out how to get a hold of us. And if they had a problem with you, they'd be barking at us, and they don't. And so we really appreciate you. So I'll put that on the record.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other
Appreciate it.
discussion or any motions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I move that we increase the compensation for Executive Director Daryl Spinks by 15% effective July 1st.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Been seconded by Mr. Bridges, Chair Bridges. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Thank you, Director Spinks.
Thank you all.
We appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Is there any further business? Hearing none, without objection, I will adjourn the meeting. Hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned.